Okay, from adventures we have Distant Lands, Lost City, Relic, Miser, and Amulet. Healthy dose of adventures cards here. On the board, I see Cultist. I know I want to put as many ruins into my opponent's deck as possible, especially because the trashing is kinda weak with only Develop and Amulet to do so. Miser can get rid of your coppers. I am envisioning some kind of engine with Lost City and Cultist. There's Distant Lands and Horn of Plenty for payload, as some people call it. But there's things to do with the engine with Horn of Plenty and Distant Lands. Horn of Plenty you can get up to Province Worth, you can go for a Mega Turn that way. And Distant Lands can let you play catch up to a player who's going for provinces. My opening thoughts here on this opening hand really was open so that I can have a decent chance of getting 5 because I want to buy cultists and slam as many cultists as possible. So part of that plan involves going for silver. I wasn't sure, I wanted some kind of trash in as well. I wasn't quite sure what to do. My opponent goes for amulet, and I could see that because amulet has flexibility. It can give you money, or it can let you trash a card. Or again a silver, but that's not an option I'm interested in. So my opponent mirrors my opening here. On this turn 3 I have the amulet and the silver. I opt for money from this amulet instead of trashing to get up to 5 to get this cultist going. So here on my opponent comes up with 4 and goes for a miser. So planning to trash some coppers, or to set aside some coppers anyway. Here I opt to trash with the amulet, the overgrown estate, hoping to draw into another copper. I know there's copper on hovel left. If I drew into copper it would have been another cultist very quickly. Also with these shelters there's Necropolis, a source of plus actions. So you already have a better start than you would have with just 3 estates for building an engine, I think. I get a second silver here. I really want to be hitting 5 consistently. My opponent gets 5, goes for cultist just as I did. I get my second cultist here with 6. 4 on this board is an awkward number. My opponent goes for another silver on 3 here, which is reasonable. 4 is awkward, I say, because I don't really want anything for 4 or less. So I buy a crossroads. Again, this is rarely for the latter half of the game when I hope to be drawing many cards and using the plus actions from crossroads. Here I'm able to play the cultist first and give my opponent the first ruins, and I draw my crossroads dead, which is not happy. Also I have to choose between amulet and cultist, and I think cultist was the correct call there, even though it hurt to not play that amulet. On 4 again, it was an awkward number for me. I couldn't really tell what to do here. My opponent in the chat is saying that they regret buying Miser. I didn't really have any comments for that. I'm not a fan of Miser. Some people are, some people aren't. I'm one of those that aren't. So here on my 4, I just buy an estate to trash the hovel. It'll make the crossroads a bit better. That was my line of thinking. I didn't really want too many silvers. I wanted to be able to get my draw up as soon as possible. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe a third silver was fine, necessary even. I go for more cultists here as my opponent finally plays, not finally, but eventually plays the miser, setting aside a copper and getting more silver. My opponent has quite a bit more silver than me, so money is not a problem to them. I get more cultists here. I think this is my first ruins, I'm not sure, but my opponent plays cultist, comes up with 8 here and goes for a relic instead of a cultist. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it should have been a cultist over relic, but anyway, it is what it is. Here I use the amulet to trash a ruins, and I buy another crossroads. Again, I'm trying to develop some kind of engine thing here, and with just one crossroads is not very reliable. My opponent manages to pair the necropolis with 2 actions here, so it's the first time for the game that has happened, so that's obviously good for my opponent. Trashing with the amulet, getting ruins into my deck. Here I thin this copper with the amulet and I have to play these cultists even though it's at the end of the shuffle. I draw a Crossroads dead and I draw another Crossroads dead, so not happy things here, but it's okay. I come up with 5, and here with only 2 ruins left, I don't think I can get around to my cultists fast enough to deliver those 2 ruins into my opponent's deck, so at this point I opt for the Lost City, trying to build draw, also a source of plus actions. Again, I'm thinking about Horn of Plenty and distant lands here. My opponent with the amulet here is thinking about what to do. Plays a cultist, comes up with 3 and 2, 5 with the relic. Now this relic attack hurts. It's simple and it is innocuous, but I think it is significant. Here on this 5, I go for a Horn of Plenty on the reshuffle, thinking that, well, it's reasonable that I can get 5 cost cards with that Horn of Plenty, but really I think I should have been building my draw one more shuffle before going for the Horn of Plenty. So now my opponent manages to buy a Lost City, so I get an extra card, which is good. However, my idea with the Horn of Plenty does not come to fruition. I only have 4 uniques if I play it here, and like I said, 4 to me was an awkward number on this board. Still play it and get a second amulet, thinking that I would want the extra trashing. And not only do I have 4 uniques, but I only have 4 coins. So I'm thinking about what to do here. Maybe a Crossroads. Maybe a develop. Develop is sometimes good. Instead, I go for silver because, well, I don't want to be hitting 4. And there's Relic coming at me now. Here comes the Relic again. My opponent has a good hand. So if you notice here, my opponent has the Ruined Market, which I think is a big deal on this board, given that it is the only source of plus buy. So they come up with 11 and 2 buys and immediately make use of the buy to go for Province and Develop. Not sure what they're going to do with the Develop, but is a useful card. You can get rid of Ruins at worst here. So here the Relic, I don't know if it prevented me from getting to 5 there, but I just passed that turn with $4. I didn't want anything there. My opponent uses Miser, maybe for the 2nd or 3rd time to set aside something. Here, Crossroads, Cultist. Here, I play this Cultist. Triggering the shuffle is not bad. There's, what, 3 bad cards, so to say, in this hand, so it's not too bad to trigger that shuffle. Additionally, I still have actions to play the amulet to get rid of one of these cards, so I think that was an okay decision. So I get rid of the Abandoned Mine after playing the Ruined Library, and I don't want any more Crossroads. I think 2 is enough. My opponent now, at this point in the deck, has quite a bit of silver and some cultists and some lost cities. So they are very money oriented at this point. I'm trying to build up more on the action side here. Like I said, I think my building here wasn't quite precise or correct. I think I should have put in a bit more draw before going for cards like the Horn of Plenty, for example. My opponent puts down the Relic again, and on 3 here, we'll see what they buys more silver. So this is kind of consistent with the Cultist big money thing here. I get rid of our Ruins with the amulet, which is good. I have a Necropolis and get a couple Cultists in, and 5. Once I hit 5, really, I'm okay. I'm happy with this. So at this point, I am tired of being the only one to fall under the influence of Relic, so I get a Relic myself. I realized my opponent did something with the Relic that was neat here. They played Relic and then bought a Lost City, so I wasn't able to draw a card from the buying of the Lost City. My opponent comes up with 9 here and gets a second Province, extending their lead here. Choose not to play the Ruined Library to keep the amulet, the Horn of Plenty, the Lost City in the next shuffle. Also, with this Horn of Plenty now, I can gain a 5 cost card, which is, you know, what I wanted to do right now. Eventually, I wanted to go up to Province. I gain another Horn of Plenty, and I'm thinking here about a Lost City to because I realize I need a bit more draw. Instead, I think I opt for distant lands at this point. Yes, I opt for distant lands at this point. I feel like my opponent has quite a bit of money and I need to start playing catch up as soon as possible. Here, my opponent develops the miser into a horn and a silver, manages to buy another province. So 3 provinces to just the 1 estate that I bought early on currently. This amulet I'm considering because I can play this rune library to draw a card, maybe it'll be useful. But instead I opt to get rid of it. I play the Necropolis looking for a green card. Do find that green card so the crossroads can draw something here. I set aside the distant lands and again I have 5, so that's okay with me once I keep hitting this $5 mark. With the horn I'm going to gain a cultist at this point to further increase the draw in my deck, and I'm going to buy distant lands consistently on from this point here. At 5 my opponent gets a lost city. Reasonable enough, I get the card, which I am happy about. I'm almost always happy to get more cards in my starting hand here. Lost City comes out, Crossroads Cultist, there's no more ruins left, but if you hadn't noticed, I use Amulet to thin a copper here, and I get to play my Relic. With only 7 here, with 8 I would have considered Province, obviously. I may have bought it given that there's 5 in the pile, but with 7, we'll stick to the Distant Lands plan here, hoping to play catch up. So this hand is not very good, and what I think I'll have to do is to trash a cultist to look for a source of plus actions. Do not find it. Instead, 3 cultists are going to be left in the hand here. I'm not going to play this Horn of Plenty because there's not enough uniques for me to gain something that I want. My opponent on 5 gets a Lost City, and here I'm able to trash with the amulet. This time the Horn of Plenty goes up to 5, and I'm able to gain a cultist here. I'm not going to buy anything on $1 obviously. My opponent comes out with Lost Cities and 9 plus a Horn of Plenty, so they go for Province and Lost City. Lost City draws me into Distant Lands, which is good for the crossroads. I set aside my Distant Lands, and here I'm going to buy even more Distant Lands. So my opponent has half the provinces, and I really can't contest the provinces. It would just end the game more quickly and cause me to lose. So all I can do at this point is stick to this plan of buying Distant Lands. At this point I am keeping piles in mind as well. The Lost City is low, Cultist is low, and if I keep buying Distant Lands, that will eventually run out. My opponent trashes a Cultist here. Presumably their hand was bad and needed to get out of that sticky situation. Seems like they managed to do so. Coming up with 8 here and 2 buys, and instead of going for the province as they have been doing, they go for a crossroads and a distant lands at this point. So I don't mind that too much because it takes a while for the distant lands to come back around to land on your tavern mat. So I'm not too worried about that, not too concerned. I would have been more concerned had they bought a province. So here I'm now starting to count how many uniques I have in my deck for the Horn of Plenty to go up to province. I can start looking at the end of the game because I have 1 extra Horn of Plenty. I'm close on points. I'm only 8 points away now through these distant lands. So I'm considering what to gain here with the Horn of Plenty. I end up gaining gold because it is a card that I don't have yet, a unique. So it will make my Horn of Plenty get up to that $8 mark more easily. Again, this is a bad hand here and I'm forced to trash a cultist to make it better. So my opponent gets the last distant lands and a crossroads here, but again it's not on their tavern mat, so it doesn't count for points yet. Here I'm able to get all 4 cultists down after trashing 1 of them, and I draw almost my whole deck. This is what I wanted to do from the beginning of the game, have a deck that looks something like this. So now I'm counting and I realize that I have a win if I use the horn to gain 2 cultists, and then I buy a province, and that is exactly what happens here. So please leave comments, feedback for what could have been done better here. Distant Lands is a big player. Thank you for watching, and I apologize for whatever extra background noise there might be. I'm in a different location these days. Okay, bye.